A criminal investigation will now be conducted after the temple collapse on Friday in Verulam in KZN. 5 people have died, several others were injured. A preliminary report has found several irregularities, including the fact that no building plans were submitted and substandard cement was used. Let's unpack this further with Professor Nthatisi Khatleli from the School of Construction and Economics at Wits University. Prof, it's a pleasure having you on. Thanks for your time. Suffice to say, some shocking revelations in this preliminary report that was released earlier today.
Good afternoon. I'm honored to be here. Yes, indeed. This is shocking. But if there's no permit, I wouldn't be surprised. Because the first thing that you'd want to get from the authorities is the permit. Because the permit is based on the fact that you've submitted drawings with all the specification, with all the designs that show that the principles have been adhered to. So if you didn't do that, it was never going to end well.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that there was no permit, no building plans were ever submitted, what does that say about the checks and balances that we have in place? Building inspectors doing the rounds at construction sites around the country?
Yeah, the vetting process is very weak because people cannot really be expected to adhere to the regulations if the enforcement is not really robust. I mean, as you and I drive on the highway, there will be speed cameras, there will be cops, because you have to enforce certain behavior. So I think tellingly, the fact that the private clients here in this project and the one, what's the other one that collapsed last year? Forgetting it. But we're involving private clients. It means, especially when it comes to private owners of buildings, the vetting process from the authorities is not that robust.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the George building collapse.
Exactly.
That was just about a year ago as well. And, you know, we talk about the anatomy of a failed system. This is, and we see it in various parts of the world, right, Professor? But this is now at least the second event of this nature where there's been no checks and balances. It's resulted in a massive loss of life. I mean, 5 people, 5 families potentially affected. And
this has come to light because we are talking about huge projects here. But then this is indicative of a system that is failing. What about smaller projects that, you know, don't even result in fatalities, you know, double stories in far-flung places? I think the whole system, I'm glad the minister was really on top of the situation. The whole system has to be overhauled so that we don't really, expect this. This is going to result in a situation where we are dealing with an industry that is not really respected and trusted by the general populace. That can be good.
Yeah. So when we talk about, and this might be an obvious question, but when we talk about no approved building plans, no permits for a multi-story structure, what are the dangers that this creates from a design, from a safety perspective?
There are a lot of things that are involved here, but the most important ones. The ground itself has to support these 4 floors, because if it's not robust enough, it means the building is going to sink into the ground. We call that settlement. Now, the foundations themselves have to be strong enough to support the structure. So, and the columns as well. So I know the concrete was weak and it wasn't adhering to the standards, but there could be a whole lot of other things that were not done properly. So if you don't really submit the plans where you have fresh pair of eyes and fresh minds to look into what has been done, you are courting danger. And this will be the results.
Yeah. So the provincial government says it was busy with legal proceedings against the building's owners at the time of this collapse. But if that was the case, if there were legal proceedings underway, is that not an indicator that the site itself should have been shut down?
No. If there's no building permit, any activity that was happening on that site, it was illegal in the first instance. You cannot build without a building permit, without having your plans approved. That's illegal.
So where are the gaps here, Prof? And I imagine there are many.
Yeah, I think for somebody to be this bold for such a massive structure, it means the entire system is failing.
Yeah.
So I think, like I'm saying, there could be a whole host of failures and weaknesses We have to have a thorough investigation where we will provide a robust report so that the whole system can be overhauled properly.
Yeah, the issue of the substandard concrete material, the substandard reinforced columns that were being used. What do you make of that, Professor? Have you seen this kind of issue come up before?
It does happen, but not on this scale. Because when you're talking of structures of this scale, because most buildings, if I can just start, most buildings will be standing for a couple of years, although the design is poor. Because remember, the building, first of all, has to support its own weight,
right,
and then support the weights that are imposed on it. This one failed to support its very own weight, meaning it was poorly designed. It was very, very poor.
So not only was the company involved here building and doing this construction illegally, but it was also trying to sidestep the process by using materials that were not up to standard.
Why not obtain a building permit from the authorities? Because those are not just administrative niceties. Those are very crucial stages that a project has to pass through. Why avoid that? What was the intention? What was the expectation?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And of course, now a criminal investigation is going to follow, according to Dean McPherson, who held that media briefing just earlier today. And rightfully so. I mean, is murder off the table here?
No.
5 people having lost their lives in that disaster temple in Verulam. Professor Nthatisi Khatleli, let me thank you for your time this afternoon from the School of Construction, Economics and Management at Wits University.